So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Um, Welcome everyone. This is our forum regarding peace, conflict, and war studies with our tonight topic, which is weapons, the technology of death. And for today, we have various speakers that will talk about weapons and the technology of death. We have Aisha Imanina, we have Muhammad Shahid, we have Nasnurul Hakimah, we have Nur Alisha, Nur Adila, Nur Munira, and Nur Sifati Nabila. So, um, for the introduction, maybe we can ask Shahid and Nur Munira. Maybe you guys can give us a simple elaboration what is actually weapons and why some people call it as the technology of death. Maybe Shahid can start.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you for moderator and fellow speakers today. Weapons have been used in many combat as an instrument for killing and injuring or defeating an enemy. Over time, the weapons technology has evolved from as early as being carried by hand, such as sword or javelin, to those being operated using mechanical, such as catapult and chemical power. For instance, the missiles and rockets. But what fears us is that as such weapons technology evolves, the devastating effects it carries become worse and unpredictable. This can be seen in the case of nuclear weapons. The last time it was used in warfare was during the atomic raids by the United States on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan as the means to end World War II in 1945. Ever since that event, many other countries have taken part in its development, causing sudden change in international relations realm. This involved several measures being established to control and prevent the spread of nuclear weapons and weapons technology, to promote cooperation in the peaceful use of nuclear energy, and to further the goal of achieving nuclear disarmament and general and complete disarmament in the lights of Treaty of Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. For further explanation, I would like to pass to Munira. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shahid. To the continuance from Shahid's side, I would say that the using of nuclear weapon not only causing that, but also will destroy the property and cause disability towards the people. It is because the atomic bomb was contain about 64 kilogram of the uranium that will release energy that equal to 15 kilotons of chemical explosive that will cause immediate explosion at the area that have been targeted. Besides that, this weapon cannot aim at specific body regions, so it may cause injury between 44% until 92% towards a person's body. This radioactive debris carried by the wind was settled to the earth as the radioactive fallout that also can cause disability towards people. In addition, the use of this nuclear weapon was not only for destroy enemy, but also to reduce the ability which from the intimidation and physical damage because of the non-lethal injury may significantly impact to the operation success compared to the absolute number of death between the opposite team. I think that's all from me. Back to you, Aiman.
Okay. Thank you, Shahid and Miss Nonira for a very good introduction on weapons, the technology of death. For those that maybe don't have any information, what are the weapons that we're talking about is we actually talk about the nuclear weapon, which is that's why we call it as the technology of death. Shahid and Numinira said about how the weapon are been using as instrument for killing and injuring and defeating an enemy. Um, so, like we all know, in current international community, the state coexists in the condition of anarchy. Therefore, they need to self-help themselves to in order to achieve safety, security, and peace. So, sometimes the nuclear weapon are used as a military threat, as a mean to deter international conflict and war since World War II. So, um, the states are using a weapon or nuclear weapons as a deterrence policy. So like we can see in World War II, the US used nuclear weapon to stop Japan from invading ASEAN. So sometimes it works, but sometimes it have a very negative impact that we have to explore. However, nuclear weapons are the most lethal, inhuman, and rampant weapons ever created. For example, we can see the impact in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But if we continuing to explore how human treat this kind of weapon, which is the nuclear weapons, to prevent nuclear weapons, we have seen a very um, active development in international community to prevent nuclear wars to be continue being used in warfare and cause massive destruction. Various treaty and legal instruments have been constructed, such as Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, 1970, and actually the treaty is a landmark international treaty whose objective is to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons and the weapon technology. But we can't say that the NPT is truly successful, because other than NPT, we have seen there is a lot of treaty being constructed after 1970, such as nuclear weapons anti-ballistic missile treaty (ABM) in 1972, a New START strategy arms reduction treaty in 2011. So back to our panel, to our speakers, maybe Aisha, do you see any recommendation or um, any recommendation or anything that we can do in legal instrument to help and prevent from nuclear being continued to use in warfare or in order to stop international conflict. So maybe Aisha can enlighten us with her recommendations. So Aisha.
All right, thank you, Aiman, for passing the floor to me. So, as there is already a lot of legal instruments in place that governs the use of the nuclear weapons by nuclear weapon owning nations, some of these legal instruments are seen to not be completely implemented, and it makes no difference in the nuclear world. Some of these countries are also not bound by the existing legal instruments, so this makes it a little bit harder uh, for the legal instruments to be implemented and also enforced. So these legal instruments are to be examined and reassessed in order to reestablish their relevance in the current world. Because if they are not assessed and examined, it would be seen as something irrelevant in the present world. Also, some of these legal instruments are also regarding the nuclear weapons have agreed to further discuss the need for states to clearly articulate the future scope of threats they perceive from others. So another suggestion is that these legal instruments to have a creative format of forum to reinforce its foundation, which means it helps a forum with its member states to address the benefits and drawbacks of their agreement, and also how to improve it further. So the need to control and prevent conflict from escalating to nuclear war was also established during the risk reduction discussion. So I think that is all the recommendation under the first topic of the discussion. So I pass back to you, Aiman.
All right. Other than legal instrument, in speaking of the technology of death of or nuclear weapons, um, there is another issue of international or nuclear weapons, which is it been used in economic strategy or geopolitical economic strategy, which is a nuclear weapon are being used in international arms trades. So maybe in exploring what is mean by international arms trades, maybe Sifati and Nasnurul can enlighten us. So Sifati, can you please explain what is actually international arms trades?
Yes, of course, can. Thank you, Aiman. So, Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. My name is Nursifati Nabila, and tonight I will talk about our second issue, which is the issue of international arms trade. Okay, so Oxfam has proposed United Nations members to implement a strong and effective arms trade treaty, which is ATT. It is to protect people all over the world, to prevent human rights abuses and save lives. The treaty was signed on 3rd June 2013 and came into force on 23rd December 2014. And the ATT is aimed to minimize the human suffering caused by illegal and irresponsible weapons transfers, to enhance regional stability and security, and to promote state parties' accountability and responsibility with regard to conventional weapon transfers. But however, there are still issues in the reporting mechanism of international arms trade. Okay, the basis of national arms trade export reports are national control lists. As of January 2010, 32 states had published at least one national report on arms export since 1990, and also the 2009 European Union Annual Report on Arms Exports. These reports vary in detail, but tend at the very least to provide information regarding the financial value of arms export and export license. And next, Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, SIPRI, has tried to estimate the financial value of international trade in arms by using national reports and official statements. There is a unit system that was created by SIPRI named as TIV. The purpose of TIV is to reflect its military capability and not its financial value. This common unit can be utilized to measure over time trends in arms flows between certain countries and regions. On the other hand, the now defeated U.S. Arms Control and Disarmament Agency, ACDA, has developed an integral definition of the arms trade that researchers have widely used, which is weapons of war, parts thereof, ammunition, support equipment, and other commodities designed for military use. And the U.S. Congressional Research Service, or CRSN, report the conventional arms transfers to developing nations uses a similar definition of the arms trade. And the report includes estimates of the value of war arms trade, not just trade with developing countries. Okay, in comparing between SIPRI, CRS, Nationalist, and ACDA, and the SIPRI transfer database information is provided on international transfers of arms between 1950 and the recent year calendar. It covers less than the national control list, such as ACDA and CRS. For instance, the transfer of most small arms and light weapons is not included. It does, however, provide information on the number of transfer units and uses a single price system to measure the volume of transfers of weapons. I guess that's all from me. I'll pass it to the moderator. Thank you.
All right. So Sifati, thank you for explaining what is international arms trades, and I believe Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, which is SIPRIS, have annually shown that there is international arms trades activities that happen in every year. So, Nasnurul, from your perspective, is there any recommendation for international community to prevent or to look into these international arms trades? Nasnurul.
Thank you, Aiman. The recommendation for this issue are the ATT should be amended to improve and include some relevant articles in order to get a more precise detail in the National Arms Export Report, such as details about the financial value of arms export or export license. The purpose of amendment is not only to obtain an accurate details report, but also to ensure that once the state parties had ratified the ATT, they must enforce the treaty as best as possible, and they cannot at will unratify the ATT after they have signed it. By this way, the efficacy of ATT will stand out, and the other countries will not underestimate it. Next is to avoid the difficulty in estimating the financial value of international arms trade, The guidelines for a detailed report need to be established, as well as a database that is always up to date and in line between CIPRI, ACDA, and CRS. That's all from me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Nasnurul. It was a very great recommendation regarding international trade. So I believe for today's discussion or this forum have brought a new knowledge for us, and I'm trying to brought two young ladies to conclude our forum, which is Nur Adila and Nur Alisha. So please, Nur Adila and Nur Alisha, please conclude our forum.
Thank you, Ayman, for giving these opportunities to me. So to conclude, weapon was one of the little costs that destroy human life ever seen World War I throughout traditional means by way of sword and javelins. Because of the transformation of world order, this item also evolved from being a close combat armament to an atomic bomb such as nuclear weapon that destroy human life in the massive way. So therefore, the increase of communication and forum within member state was one of the alternatives that can postpone and prevent the high consumption of nuclear weapons from being escalated.
Okay. Okay, for the conclusion, the issue of the international arms trades became highlight due to its illegal operations that transported huge amounts of deadly weapons illegally between one state and the others. So, to prevent these activities from being escalated, the international communities and the US established the ATT, CIPRI, ACDA, and CRS with one objective, which was to monitor the exchange goods between states and prevented the high chance of the illegal massive armament during trade happen. Thus, it can be said that indeed weapons was one of the technologies that destroy hope and lights in human life due to its nature as a mechanical weapon with deadly functions such as sharp blade and a huge amount of uranium in one atomic bomb. Therefore, the prevention of this armament was highly anticipated by communities because it can save human population from being extinct. That's all.
All right, thank you, Alicia. I think that's all for our discussion, and thank you for all, Aisha, Shahid, Nasnurul, Nur Alisha, Nur Adila, Nur Manira, Nur Sifati Nabila, and I think it was great forum. I think it was a great research we're doing together to submit to Dr. Abdullahi as our final research and our final presentation. So I believe we gain a lot of knowledge from this research, and so thank you for your cooperation and good luck.